If you found this podcast, chances are you're a high achiever and you're successful. But now you're stuck and stressed, and you realize that everything you've created hasn't given you the fulfillment and the joy you thought it would. This is where we discuss the keys of high performance mindset and stepping into the next best version of yourself. Welcome to the Positive Persistence Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Positive Persistence Podcast, where we bring you stories to inspire you and strategies to help you tap into your potential and become your best self. Today, we are joined by a friend of mine who is a passionate health and fitness professional who believes that taking care of your body transforms everything. Born and raised in beautiful Jamaica, he loves sports and an active lifestyle and was ingrained in him from an early age. However, his journey took an exciting turn as he got older and ventured into the hospitality industry, spending over 30 years managing luxury hotels across 12 cities in 3 countries. Now, while he was in this invaluable experience, he formed lifelong friendships and met his wife, but the demands of a fast-paced career led him to neglect his own health. And by his mid-40s, he faced alarming health issues, prompting a wake-up call that changed the course of his life. Uriel Baker, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me, Ian. It's a great pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely. So I just want to give our listeners and viewers a little bit of a context of how we met. Uriel is a Fit Body Bootcamp owner, as I am. Uriel is in Ohio, which is right next door here in the beautiful Midwest. And we came into connection probably about 3 years ago and have become friends since then. We have a lot of actual parallels in our lives, but just knowing the type of individual that you are, I felt it was necessary to have you on the show to share your story with our viewers and listeners, because it is one about positive persistence. Because if you didn't have that, you would not be where you are currently in life, I believe. So what I'd like to do, Uriel, without further ado, is get you in on telling your story. And if we can kind of start, not necessarily at the beginning, but let's talk about like life in Jamaica and what that was like for you and how you were able to make that transition over to the United States and start your illustrious career in the hospitality business.
Awesome. So, all right. So we're not going all the way to the beginning because that goes back to 1973. That's a long time ago, man. All right.
That's not too long. Go on now.
I'm a 70s baby, born in 73.
Me too.
And, to an amazing woman, my mother, during the course of this conversation, you'll hear me reference her quite a bit. I was, for the most part, raised by a single parent. But again, I grew up in the country. Grew up in beautiful St. Elizabeth, Jamaica. Most people never heard of St. Elizabeth. It is on the south coast of the island. Not a lot of tourism, which means some of the best beaches. There's no tourism to beat up the natural beauty of the beaches. Grew up in a farming town. Was raised among cousins and aunts, uncles, and so even though there wasn't a close relationship with my father, I still had amazing father figures in my life. And, and those are some of the things that gave me a lot of, the drive, the push and the determination that I would later in life would be very prevalent in my life. Yeah. Right. So spent most of my time down in the country boy, running around barefooted, you name it, couple miles down the road from the beach, couple miles down the road from the river, the mountains are right there. And, grew up very spiritual, spent a lot of time in the church because, that's just how it is, but also spent a lot of time playing sports. And, from a very early age, volleyball became my love. I mean, I played everything else. I ran track, soccer, or as we call it, football, but volleyball became my big love. And I started playing probably at the age of 6 and have played volleyball my entire life. Played on every level. Played high school, college, represented the national team. When I moved to the U.S., played club and so on and so forth. And now at the tender age of 51, I'm still out there throwing it around, with guys half my age, but it still feels good. And that will never change. managed to go. My mom did an amazing job raising my sister and I, or my sister and me rather. We went to one of the top high schools in Jamaica, Newark College. Big shout out, Bubbo, for those who are listening and those who know. And, after high school, went to college, and right out of college, man, went straight into the hospitality industry. Hospitality was always something that I've always been to. I remember at the age of 14, we went on a field trip to the north coast of the island. And I remember we pulled up in front of this resort. At the time, it was called American. It was the biggest resort in the Caribbean. And the bus pulls up in front of the resort, and I sat there and I looked up and you go, this is what I want to do when I grow up. I was 14 years old. And right out of college, got my first job working at a resort in Ocho Rios. And I don't know if you, well, I know you have, and I know you've been to Mexico, and I know you've been everywhere because we connect on Facebook. But when you go to these resorts and you see these little guys on the microphone getting you up to beds and bearing bear games, that was me. You believe that? That was me. And that was me 100 pounds ago, right? And it was long days. We would work 6 days a week from 7 a.m. till the nightclub closed at 2:00 in the morning. We'd go home, shower, and do it all over again. Honestly, probably one of the best 8 years of my life. So did that in Jamaica. And then while all of this was going on, my mom had emigrated from Jamaica to the US in 1988. So she moved to the US in 1988. And, it's now, I started working in the hotel business in 1992. And so in 1998, she sponsored and filed for my sister and me to move to the US. Full transparency, I did not want to come to the US. I wanted to stay in Jamaica because I was living a great life. I was 24 years old. I had an amazing job. At this time, I also, because I grew up in the church, I had another talent that most people don't know. I was, and in the operative word there was, an amazing singer. So a lot of times, in addition to my job working at the resort, I would moonlight doing gigs at other resorts. So I was crushing for 20-something-year-olds.
I didn't know this.
Oh, yeah. So the next time, you can go back and look. The next time you see one of those videos of me on vacation or on a cruise, there's almost always me singing karaoke at one of the bars. And that's how I tap into my former self. But, yeah, so there you go. Another thing you learn about.
You were, in the full respect of the word, an entertainer.
Yes, absolutely. I was straight entertaining.
Yeah.
And so, the thought of moving to the United States at that point just wasn't something that, most of my peers at that time who had the opportunity would go, yes, let's go. I was very hesitant. So we found out about a move to the US 1996. We didn't move here until 1998 because I kept prolonging it. And then finally, my mom comes to Jamaica and she goes, listen, she did the mom guilt trip, obviously. I've been in the US slaving. I left my great life here to come here and make a better life for you and your sister. And you're telling me you don't want to come to the US. So obviously mama's boy goes, all right, I'll fold. I'll go. So we moved here. And here's the crazy part. We moved from Jamaica March 1st, 1998. So it's winter, from Jamaica to Newark, New Jersey. I'm gonna let that sit for a little bit.
Yeah. Talk about a culture shock.
Not just a culture shock. We're talking about going from 90-degree weather to, I don't know, it was like 8 degrees the day we landed. Or even if it wasn't, it just felt that way because this was a huge change for us.
Did you even have clothes, like winter clothes to wear that when you landed?
So my mother made sure that there were winter jackets in the car for us when she picked us up at the airport. But again, coming from Jamaica to that, I needed a winter coat. I needed a whole outfit, right?
Yeah.
But it was a huge transition. It was a huge transition. And, I was fortunate enough that by May of that same year, I got my first job working in a hotel. in
Okay.
in right. So I started working as a front desk agent, and this is one of the things, the big cultural differences that I had to learn really, really quickly. In Jamaica, we take our time. There's no rush. We get there when we get there.
Right.
It's literally everything iron, man, right? There's
Everything's
no,
all right.
right? Everything iron, right?
Laid back.
The first 3 months I was on that job, I was late for work every single day. Every
For 3
single,
months?
the first 3 months, every single day I was late for work. And luckily, my general manager at the time, her parents, she kind of like you, her parents were Jamaican.
Mhm.
She wasn't. She was born here in the US, but her parents were Jamaican. And so she would pull me into her office and she would go, listen, I understand, the cultural differences and, and it might take time, but if you don't get it together, man, we're letting you go, And so that was like my first, I would get, again, didn't have a car yet. I had just moved here. My mom would drop me off at the train station in Newark, New Jersey, and I would take the train down to East Brunswick, New Jersey, where my hotel was. And I remember getting into the train station and everybody's hustling, everybody's running, and I'm walking like, why is nobody rushing? I don't get the point. It wasn't until I started showing up late for work every day that I realized, okay, you need to get it together. You need to get it together, man, or you're probably going to have to go back. So that was the first lesson that, my first big lesson here in the US that I had to learn. But once I started figuring it out, the rest of it came pretty easy, by August of that year. So this is August of 98. The hotel's overnight manager had, resigned because he was moving on to another position, another hotel and whatnot. And I got approached for that. And in my mind, I'm going, I've only been here for 2 seconds. But, I guess once I got over my tardiness, the work ethic that had always been instilled in me and the spoke for itself. And so I got promoted to that role. And after that promotion, they just started cut. A year after that, I got promoted to the Hilton Times Square, smack in the middle of New York City. It's probably one of my favorite places. As a matter of fact, it is my favorite place, even though I love Cincinnati. So shout out to my Cincinnati people. I'm never leaving Cincinnati. I love it here. But New York City, to get the opportunity, 2 years after being in the US, to be a front office manager at a huge hotel smack in the middle of Times Square was now me living my hospitality dream. After that came the promotions and the moves and the different cities. And so I've lived, oh my gosh, the whole podcast will probably be telling all the cities that I've lived in.
Yeah.
But it's New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Boston, New Hampshire, Maryland, Georgia, Texas, you name it, we're moving. And then it ultimately came down to 2016. For the most part, I lived up and down the East Coast. I was never a fan of moving to the Midwest because, again, the longer you spend living in New York City, there's this feeling like there's New York and then there's the rest of the world.
There's everything else, right? Yeah.
Right? So you hear Ohio and you're like, what is that, a different time zone? But my wife is from Ohio. So she and I met in Texas, believe it or not, in 2013. We both worked for the same management company. And we were at a company's headquarters in Dallas. And, met her and she wanted nothing to do with me because, she's like, I don't mess with people I work with, and so on and so forth. That was February 2013. May 2013, I got another promotion and had to go for training in Memphis, Tennessee. She had recently gotten a promotion and was living in Tennessee. So we made plans to have lunch and so on and so forth. And as I say, the rest is history. We ended up connecting. We started dating, started doing the long distance thing. I was living in Boston at this point. She's living in Memphis. And I remember for her birthday, January of 2014, I messaged her, I called her and I said, listen, so, we've been doing the long distance thing for a while. I'm buying a one-way ticket to Memphis for your birthday. And she's like, are you moving here? And I said, no, I'm buying a one-way ticket because we're renting a U-Haul truck. We're putting all your stuff in there and I'm driving it off bus. And she was like, what? And through negotiating, it happened. So we moved in together even before we were an item, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But that also speaks to one of the things that I really do hold dear and true to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I see something and I want it, I'm going to get it. Like that's just how it, yes, I'll deal with all the other pieces surrounding getting that thing or owning that thing or making that thing work. But, I am a diving with both feet and a guy. I've always been that way. I've gone into a lot of trouble in my childhood because of it. And you will notice as we start talking about when we started opening our Fit Body Bootcamps, that's just adversity for me is fuel. I use it. Yes, I use it to guide my decisions, right? It is, okay, so here's this beautiful girl. I'm all the way here in Boston. She's in Memphis. We obviously connect. We were on 4-hour calls at nights. I can alleviate all these 4-hour calls if she were right here. So let's do it. And that's what happened.
Uriel, if I can, let's talk about that adversity and you using it as fuel, because for a lot of us, adversity comes and we don't know either how to deal with it or we don't want to deal with it. So we'll shy away from it, which doesn't help our situation. It usually prolongs our situation. So can you share with us, like through your experiences, which you've had plenty, which you've illuminated for us thus far, what is it that helps you transform that adversity into fuel and triggers your fight response and not your flight response?
Right. One of the things that happens to us in adulthood a lot of times is, especially if we sit with therapists, and it's funny because this is a conversation that we sit, because for a very long time I was opposed to setting with the therapist. I just always felt like whatever I'm going through, I can fix it myself, because that's just my makeup. When in essence, there's a level of truth to it, but everybody needs help. Everybody, it is always good to have an outlet, or medium through which you do best. But one of the reasons why I was so opposed to going to see a therapist was I've always felt like therapy sessions always end up being a blame game on what happened in earlier in your life, right? It is what happened with your father, what happened with your mother, what happened when in essence, for me, it's the reverse. This fight that I have comes from the fact that I was raised by a single man. This fight that I have comes from getting up every day, seeing this person who is doing everything she can under the sun, ensure that her son and daughter have the best. Is getting up and looking at yourself going, like, for example, I grew up in a third world country. To most people, I grew up poor. I didn't know I was poor. I didn't know I was poor until I moved to a developed country and we're seeing things going, oh, yeah, well, that's what poor people didn't know. Because for me, I was always taught and I always felt and I always believed that whatever situation I'm in, I have the ability to change it. And not only was I told that, I was shown that. I saw that every day. My mom worked her tail off to ensure that we were always fed, to ensure that we always had food, to ensure that we didn't need anything. And so for me, it has always been, anytime we run into challenges, if my mother could do this, so can I.
So you're able to draw your strength from your past experience because you've adopted that mind frame of, if it's meant to be, it's up to me.
Exactly.
And instead of asking, how is this going to happen? It's why not? Why isn't it going to happen?
Why isn't it going to happen?
And that's the lens that you choose to look through, is that anything is possible because I already have everything that I need within me to be able to achieve it.
Exactly. That's it.
That is an amazing way to live life, and being cognizant of the fact that you have all the abilities. Because if you pay attention, and I don't know if you agree with this or not, but if you pay attention, you are learning something from every situation that you're in. All the conversations that you have, all the experiences that you have, good and bad.
Yes.
You can learn things about yourself that you carry with you for the rest of your life. So when adversity strikes again, which we all know it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.
Exactly.
You can grab what I like to call, reach into your metaphysical backpack of all these experiences that you've had in history of your life and pull out all the tools that you've used before to go to work on this next adversity.
Yes.
And be able to conquer that. And then whatever success you have from that, you pack that away and you carry that with you.
You keep that in reserve when we need to draw it again. You know, an amazing thing happened when my older daughter was 4 years old. She had participated in soccer shots. I mean, little in soccer.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they went and played and they came home with a participation trophy. Now, what I'm going to say, I am not recommending that anybody else does, but that's what I did. And I don't regret doing it. Okay. So she comes home with her participation trophy and she comes in and she's excited about it. And it's her participation trophy. She did not win. And I took the trophy and I walked out to the backyard where you have a fire pit and I threw it. My wife was mad. She was mad at me. She was mad at me for weeks.
Understandable.
And I sat with her and I said to her, and granted, she was probably too young at the time. And this is what, looking back now, I would wait until she were older. And again, just had the opportunity last few months ago when they lost in their volleyball tournament. So I was able to use that same concept and share with her. And I said to her, listen, there's no participation trophy. You either win or you learn. There's no win or lose. You win or you learn. So you didn't win today. What did you learn? Because I don't believe in losing. We don't lose. We learn. And the only time you lose is if from this experience that you didn't win, you don't take anything from it, then you lost.
Right.
Right.
Ooh, yeah. I love that. And that is a great way to look at situations, competition, life experiences, things where you don't necessarily come out on top.
Yeah.
Where you may feel like you lost, but you're right. The only way you lose is if you didn't learn something to move forward.
You took nothing from it. And, you know, it kind of takes me to the next chapter, which is when, you know, I again went to chase after her. This was a year earlier. And my heart was just pounding out of my chest. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And, you know, I go to my doctor to do my checkups and found out, you know, I knew I was overweight. I was 300 pounds at the time. And, you know, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, pre-diabetic. And he just kept telling me these things. And I'm like, okay, well, why am I even still alive? Right?
How old are you at this time?
I was 46.
Now you're 46 years old. Yeah. And people who don't know Uriel, and you can't tell by the picture that we have here, Uriel is a big guy. Like, how tall are you?
I'm 6'4".
He's 6'4". And now you're 6'4", 3 something at this time.
300 pounds. Yeah, I was a big dude. I mean, I walk into a room and it gets dark. Like, I block out all the lights. Right?
Right.
Yeah. And
he's telling me that you are pre-diabetic.
Yep.
High blood pressure.
High cholesterol.
And overweight. And you're having like heart palpitations at this point.
My heart is just like going crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. Are your daughters born?
One of my daughters was already born. This was in actually both were born. This was in 2019. So my first daughter was born in 2016. So she was 3.
Okay.
Second child had just recently been born, but she was born in 2019. So
you have a 3-year-old and a newborn, basically.
Exactly.
And the doctor's telling you,
yeah, man, you probably won't make it if you don't start.
You're probably not going to make it.
If you don't start taking meds.
Wow. If you don't start taking medication. Okay.
Yeah. And right there and then, I sat there with him and I said, I'm not taking. I'm not. Again, tapping back into how I was raised, where I'm from. If I go to my grandmother and say something hurts, she's going into the backyard, she's grabbing some kind of shrub or bush or whatever, she's giving it to me. And the whole saying, belief kills and belief cures, right? But after I drink it, I feel better.
Right.
I don't know if it works, but I feel better. And so I want to also give the precursor that I'm not opposed to medication. I never have been. I do strongly believe, though, that medication should be the last resort, right? I want to make sure that, when you share this with your audience, that people aren't thinking that I'm saying, Western medicine is horrible. That's not what I'm saying at all. I do strongly believe, however, that it shouldn't be the first go-to. And so that's the approach I took.
Yeah.
And so, I said to him, hey, let's make a deal. Give me 6 to 8 months. I want to use nutrition and exercise and try to address this. And he said, I don't think you'll be able to, but hey, you are the patient. I can't force you to do so. And so, and I remember I left the studio and I went straight home. And Abby still laughs about this because I went home like a man possessed. I walked into the pantry in the house. And I just started throwing out. I just started reading labels and throwing stuff out. And she's sitting there like, okay, what the heck is going on? And I said to her, listen, I just heard some news that aren't the best. And I just made a bet with my doctor and I need to start him today. Make some changes. Yeah. Again, what do you do in the face of adversity? Right? I could have just said, you know what? Give me the medication. All right. Because that's the easy way out. But am I really fixing it? And that's when because at this point I had stopped working out because all I was doing, I had an amazing life. And this is one of the things that when I sit with prospective members in my studios, I talk about, memberships and so on. This is one of the things that strikes a nerve about. And everybody kind of has the same story. I have an amazing career. I have a great home life. My wife was great. I have amazing children. I have a decent life. But all I do is work. And all I do is take care of everybody else. But I don't take care of me.
Right.
And at that point, that was my wake-up call. I needed to start taking care. I had stopped working out. I stopped going to the gym. I stopped playing ball because I was an amazing hotel general manager. I was flipping hotels. I was doing, making great money for the owners of hotels. And that was my life.
It's time to ask yourself, when was the last time you prioritized you? Did you know that research shows that nearly 85% of high performers struggle to maintain a performance mindset while juggling the demands of work and personal life? Those who actively prioritize their performance mindset and personal growth are 30% more likely to achieve their goals in business and life. If you're feeling crippling stress and anxiety, or if you're feeling guilty when you take a moment for yourself, or if you're stuck in the grind and feeling burnt out, you're not alone. Many of us yearn for more, but struggle with the fear of being judged or feeling selfish. And you want to step into the next best version of yourself. That's why I created the Rinse Method, which got me from paraplegic to marathon runner. Backed by science-based proven strategies and now customized for high performers like you. If you're stuck and stressed and want clear steps that you can implement today to move forward, make sure you visit thepositivepersistence.com to download our free Rinse PDF. Right. That was your identity.
Right? That was, and I remember saying this a lot. I still say it today because I do strongly believe it still. Hospitality is not what I do. Hospitality is who I am. Because that was my identity.
Yeah.
Right. And so for me, I would get up 5 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes to go to my hotel. And I'll be there until 10 o'clock at night. I'd leave before my family woke up, and I'd come home after they went to bed. Yeah. And that's all I was doing because I was enjoying my career. But Uriel the person was God. And
Right.
so I needed to pump the brakes in it and start focusing on me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I started going back to the gym and so on. But I started going back to big box gyms. So that's what I knew.
Mm-hmm.
And by now I'm almost 50, right? 48 at this. And I'm realizing, I'm in a gym. I'm in my 40s and there's guys over there in their 20s and they're benching 315. And I used to be able to do that. And so now I'm going to ego lift and tear a rotator cuff and so,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so you start doing all the inventory in your head and you're like, but tear my rotator cuff, which actually ended up happening. I'm not going to be able to fix this issue. So that's when I started looking for alternatives and found group fitness. Because I've always, again, like most of the guys that come into our studios, group fitness is for women. Like, what am I doing in a girl's gym?
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't until I walked into my first group fitness studio, which wasn't a Fit Body Bootcamp. I'm not going to say the name because I'm not giving any plugs to anybody else. And fell in love with the concept. Fell in love with the concept of being around people who are, encouraging each other, holding each other accountable, pushing each other, and so on and so forth. But at the time, there were some components of that gym that didn't work for me. Remember, 300 pounds, 6 foot, former volleyball player. I got bad knees. I can't run. It's just not going to happen. Right. And definitely not at the rate or the pace that studio wanted us to do. So I needed to find an alternative. And so from online search and so on, I stumbled upon Fit Body. And just right off the bat, just fell in love with everything related to it. 30-minute workout, the nutrition assistance, accountability, and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I remember driving home one day and thinking, I think I'm going to quit my career and buy a gym. Never managed to gym this. The only thing I've ever done in a gym was work out. And in the same breath, I thought, I think my wife's going to divorce me for coming up with this crazy idea.
Yeah.
Because again, I had a 30-year, at this point, like a 28-year career of crushing it in hospitality. It was my thing. It was me. It was what I knew. It was the only thing I've ever done. From straight out of college. And to now say, I'm going to let all of that go to buy a gym? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, Uriel, what were you thinking? Like, if you play this back, and as our listeners and our viewers are watching, they're listening to your meteoric rise, because the word promotion has been repeated in this interview over and over and over again. They had been thinking this was the golden boy of hospitality. I got promoted here. I got promoted here. I got promoted here. I'm dead central and dead smack in the middle of New York.
Yep.
Boom, Times Square. Like, I'm doing the thing. I am the man, because I'm really good at what I do, and I continue to get promoted and make a lot of money for the people that own these hotels.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden you say, skirt, I'm going to stop doing that, and I'm going to open a gym. What is going through your mind at that point in time? Because now we're talking about a huge life change.
Yes.
Huge.
What was going through my mind is, if this life doesn't change, it's going to end.
Oh, okay.
Right? If I don't change, if I don't make a change in my life, then I'm working toward ending it. And at this point, I'm not thinking about me.
Yeah.
Because, I'm almost 50. I've lived an amazing life. I've lived Jamaica, Turks and Caicos in the US. I've lived in 3 amazing, beautiful countries. And I've done a lot of travel and made some amazing friends and whatnot. But there happens to be these 2 little girls that I brought into this world that happen to be the most important thing for me. And I need to be there for them. Right? Not only that, diabetes, and I hate the term diabetes is something that runs in your family, because it's not hereditary. The habits are hereditary. Right? It is. Yes, I want to cook the same way that my grandparents cooked, or the same way that my parents cooked, and not change anything. And that's what pushes your sugar level. It isn't you were born with it because your grandfather had it. That's not how diabetes works, right? But I needed to make those changes to
Mhm.
ensure that my two little girls grow up and know who their dad is, not just a fraction of him. I don't want them to see me with an amputated limb because my sugar levels were so high. I don't
Right.
want them to see me on a ventilator. I don't want them to see that, right? I want them, honestly, I want to be able to put the fear of God in the boy or girl who they end up dating, who looks at me and go, yeah, I'm not messing with you because your dad's used, right? So the decision to do this, it wasn't a hard one to make. It is fix your life or lose your life.
That's
So
pretty
yeah,
black and white.
it's pretty black and white, and so that's the way you posed the question was actually pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it was an amazing career. But what's the point in having an amazing career if you're not really there to enjoy it? Because at
Mhm.
some point, you're going to have to start slowing down.
Yeah. I think that's a really tough concept,
Mhm.
especially for the entrepreneurs in the audience, especially for the breadwinners in the audience who are the entrepreneurs that are driving revenue and that are bringing home the income that's supporting the family. And I'm speaking out of my own experience in my first marriage. And this is where I went wrong, is where I was so focused on work, build, because I'm providing for the family. That's my value. That's where I provide my worth. But in retrospect and realizing that part of the problem of why my first marriage failed and why I have strained relationships with my daughter is because I wasn't there for her, especially when she was younger. And I made some changes when my son came along, but it wasn't to where it could have been because
Yes.
I was so focused on and I almost rationalized
Yes.
the lack of time that I would spend with them because I had to do more work. Like I was always working.
Yes.
Like my ex-wife would get upset with me. She's like, you finally get something off your plate. That's great. But then you just put something right back in to take its place. And it's so hard to get it through your mind when you're in that season, in that state of being the one you feel everyone is counting on to
Yes.
support the family financially, but you're robbing them of supporting them emotionally.
Yes.
And it's really hard to see that. And
And
I
it's
hope
tough
that
now.
people, and I hope that people listening to this conversation can have that light bulb come on like you did and said, hang on, like what really matters
Yeah.
is my family, my girls, and the legacy that I leave for them and the time that I have with them on this earth to really step into my most important role, which is being a father.
Problem. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. This is, I'm going to channel my inner Joe Marcoux because he says this a lot. This is a writer downer moment.
Writer downer.
And I learned this one from my mom. Children don't care about your presents with an ENTS.
Mm-hmm.
They care about your presents with an ENCE.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They don't care. They don't care. Yeah. Christmas time, they love to get a million gifts and whatnot. But if you ask any person, who again is sitting on the couch in front of their therapist, a lot of them will do I wish my dad was there. Yeah, my dad provided me everything. I got the sweet cars and I got the this and the that, but he was never there because he was always working. So he had the ability to give them the presents, not the presents. And I want to make sure that I was there.
That's awesome. I love that. And so now you make this tremendous decision to do what you have already said you've always done and just jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down.
That's it.
I think I'm going to stop this amazing career and I'm going to buy a gym.
Yeah. I'm going to buy a gym. And man, it was an amazing ride. It was an amazing ride. We, and still is an amazing ride. I think for me, there is something that's just really intriguing about the unknown. But again, not everyone can do it. My wife is one of those people. And I think that's why we work so well together. Because I'm the one who goes, I'm jumping. I don't care. Is the parachute working? She's the one that goes, let me make sure I stitch this parachute together.
Yeah.
So I make sure this parachute works before this idiot jumps. Right? So I think that's why the dynamics of our marriage works so well.
Yeah.
But the unknown was just very, very exciting. I remember the first call I had with Max, sales guy at Fit Body Bootcamp. And I said to him, hey, here's the deal, man. Before I bring my wife into the conversation, I need for you and I to be on a few calls first, because I want to be able to ask every question that I know she's going to ask so that you can prepare yourself so that when we talk with her, we don't have to worry about stitching the parachute. We're jumping. And so Max and I, we talked to each other for about 4 weeks. And then we had the call with Abby and we talked about the franchise, the opportunity, the return on investment and all that stuff. And I was already all in. It was just a matter of getting Abby to understand that it makes sense for me to leave this amazing career to go do this thing that would fail. I know. Yeah. And so it wasn't that I really needed her to understand. I needed her to agree. And she did. She ultimately did. And I remember she looked at me and she goes, you really want to do this? And I said, yes, I do. And that was September 2021. We purchased the franchise. I remember when we're sending over the payment to the Body Bootcamp, and we're looking at it going, man, this is a huge commitment. But in the back of my mind, I kept telling myself that this is going to be the thing that propels me to take care of myself.
Yeah.
Not only that, this is also going to be the thing that gives me the opportunity to spend time. Because one of the things that I talk about was right during the pandemic, March of 2020, the hotel I was managing, we laid off 170 staff members because of the pandemic. As a result of that, that's when I would start working at 5 a.m. until 10 o'clock at night. So entire time during the pandemic, I barely saw my children and or my wife. And it was that time again where nobody knew what you were supposed to be doing to prevent yourself from getting this thing or prevent others from getting it. So I would come home after work. We have a walkout basement, go around the house. I'd come in through the walkout basement door. I would shower in the basement and I'd hang out down there, until everybody was in bed because I didn't want to get everybody sick. So I would go for days without seeing my family. And I thought, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what being a family man is. Right? And so all of those things combined solidified in my mind the fact that starting this business was going to be helping me more than me. And I locked in on that. I honed in on that. Right? I'm going to buy my time back. I'm going to buy my health back. I'm going to get time with my family again. And so again, it's not easy. It's not. But if you do it, it is beneficial. Right. And I don't look, yes, you always look at the degree of difficulty. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like you don't go, oh my gosh, am I making the right decision? There were nights when I was in the basement at 3 o'clock in the morning, freaking out because I think I'm making a bad decision to do this. Right. But there are lots of times I did it in silence because I didn't want my wife to know that I made this big decision.
Right.
And now I'm freaking out about it. Right. And it wasn't always easy. There was a point when I thought, okay, we've paid the money. We're getting ready to start marketing. I've managed hotels that do $40 million a year in revenue. I've never managed a jet. What am I going to do? I need to find somebody to help me manage this jet. I need to find a team. And so those were the things that were going, in order for this to work, these are the things. And now that I've jumped, right? Yeah. Now that I've jumped, I need to go back to Abby's way of thinking, because we need to fix this parachute, right? Fortunately for us, we did. And we opened the studio with amazing numbers and the studio just has been a blessing for all of us. I've gotten everything I've wanted. I've gotten to buy my time back. I dropped from it was 298. It's just easy to say 300 pounds because I like to say the exact number. 298 pounds to 258 pounds, and it was like just doing Fit Body Bootcamp, right?
Yeah.
And the program, the nutrition, the community that we built. Because another thing that happened was we moved to Cincinnati, March of 2020. So we moved to Cincinnati during the pandemic. We knew nobody here. We had no friends, no nothing. Fit Body Bootcamp became our community. And we've developed great friendships and so on. We laugh a lot of times. Last year, May of last year, because May, you have kids, so May is a graduation season.
Mm-hmm.
And Abby and I were sitting at our kitchen table and we're going through all the invitations that we got. Graduation parties.
Oh, the open houses, yeah.
Yeah, right. And again, these are all people that we would not have known had we not opened this gym. Yeah. And I remember she and I, there was one that came up and we went, all right, we have to go rock, paper, scissors in this one. Because that member has a beautiful pool in her backyard and the kids were going to come with us. And I was like, I want to go to that one. And she's like, no, I want to go to that one. And we're going to rock, paper, scissors because we knew that whichever one of us got to go to that one, the kids would think that we're cool because we're bringing them to a pool party, right?
Right.
But looking back and just thinking, had I not made that decision, just take that leap, yeah, I'd still have an amazing career. I probably wouldn't be living in Cincinnati because we're now 5 years in. And in my line of work, we moved every 2 years. Every 2 years, we moved to a different city to manage a different hotel and so on. But we wouldn't be enjoying the luxury of having a community, having funds, having people who live literally right across the street from us that we can depend on between us, because we were so transient for a very long time.
Right.
So I was able to get all that. But most importantly, I was able to go. I remember when I went back to my doctor. This was June 2023. I remember going back into the doctor's office and, I stood on the scale and the physician assistant, I remember she looked up at me and she goes, did you intentionally want to lose that much weight? And I was like, what do you mean intentionally? And I didn't know that she pointed out to me at that time that, rapid weight loss like that is a sign of other things, cancer, stuff like that. So I was like, yeah, no. It's yeah, I intended to. And then he comes in and, I had my A1C results come back and, all of that stuff. And he is looking at me like, I don't understand what happened. He's like, you understand that you are one of like the 2% of people who say you're going to use nutrition and fitness to address prediabetes. Most people say they will, and they're back in my office literally weeks later. And I wear that honestly as an honor. I honestly do.
Yeah.
Because as much as, if a member of mine or trial in my studio comes and tells me that, I'm not going to say, don't take meds. I would never say that. But I know it can do that because I did it myself.
It's possible.
I know it's possible.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. So you have laid out this tapestry of an amazing life and the journey that you've taken from being that young kid who rolled up to the resort and thinking, this is what I want to do. And you became part of that at the resorts that I've been to. They call them the Animacion team, where they are up at the crack of dawn and they are rolling all day long. And that's a grind, and it is, like you said, it's like 6 days a week and they are there making sure that other people are having a good time, which is not easy. I know this. I've seen it play out, right? So then you go from there and you unwillingly come to the United States and you start a job and you continue to get promoted and you continue to excel in these different positions that you're put in. And then you come to this point to where you have to make this huge decision because your life literally hangs in the balance.
Yep.
And what I see throughout this story that you've laid out for us is a lot of different areas in your life where you've had to do one thing where you have excelled in every time, and that is make a decision. And if anything that we can take away from this, one of the pearls of wisdom I think that our listeners and viewers can get is that you have the power to decide what actions you are going to take. You seemingly have this superpower to make a decision and you just go with it. So I say all that, I guess, to ask this question. As someone who's had all these experiences, which I am sure have been full of pressure and demands in your career and in your life and in your personal growth, what advice would you give to individuals who are listening and watching who may be feeling stuck in their own life and are needing to move forward? But maybe, and I might be answering this partly for you, but maybe you have to get over that fear of making the decision. And it seems like you don't have that wall. You're able to make it and go.
I like to draw attention to it. I like to delineate between courageous and fearless. Two different things. Courage is what helps me make those decisions. There's nothing in me, there's nothing in anything that I said that I wasn't fearful, right? Because the times I've made a decision that scared the crap out of it, but I'm courageous enough to still make that. And I think that's the big problem. What cripples us is the lack of courage. Think about something and we think, okay, I need to make a decision here. Here's the thing. You have two options. Don't make a decision or remain where you are, and make a decision, fight that fear with courage and see where it takes you. It's not always good. It's not always going to, because I've made decisions that were the wrong decision. I could tap into that too. Because, the thing is, with the sunshine comes rain. I've taken courage choices or made courage choices that weren't good ones. Even in my hospitality career, I've been fired. I've been fired at least 3 times. So it's not like, oh, you came here and you just took off. Oh yeah, there were bumps. There were valleys with the peaks. Right? I've been fired. I've been laid off. But again, it is what comes with the territory. If you're in a situation, you have 2 options: you remain in it, or you make a decision to change. And if you make the decision to change, it might be the right decision. It mightn't be the right decision. But the only way to know is if you made the decision. I said,
yeah.
Right? I think it was my man. I'm sure it was somebody before him, but I remember I was listening to Steve Harvey, and he said, if you're going through a tough time, keep going. Because if you're going through it, you're going through it. What's the point in stopping? If you're going to stop, then you're going to remain in that tough time. Right? You have to keep on. Make a decision. So yes, the decision is scary sometimes. And that's where your fear will kick in. That's where my man Bedros talks about, your inner advocate or your inner doubter, right? Your inner doubter is always going to be more prevalent. That's going to be the loudest voice in your head if you let it. My inner advocate is very, very loud. And it is, again, it goes back to how I was raised. I was raised to believe that if you put your mind to it, it doesn't matter how hard it is, you can do it.
Love that. Yes,
right?
We all have that ability. Absolutely.
We all have that ability.
Absolutely.
We all have the ability, but it's a matter of, am I going to have the courage to face it? Or am I going to let my fear preside over the situation? Because the fear is, again, you're going to see the fear is going to show its ugly head. Right? One of the things that you talk about a lot is, growing up, as an African American in a predominantly white, neighborhoods and so on, and for me in my career, for a lot of times, I was the only Black manager. I was the only Black exec and whatnot. First of all, I did not see that as a feather in my hat. I saw that as an opportunity to say, if I can do it. I know at least 5 people who look like me or better than me at this. I need to help them get here. So for me, it wasn't, oh shoot, I'm the only black guy in this room. I now need to act my role. No, I'm in this room. I'm owning it. That's just what's happening. Period. Because I was raised to believe that if I'm in that room, I am not just in that room. I'm not the thermostat, the thermometer in that room. I'm the thermostat.
You're the thermostat. Yes.
I'm setting the tone in here.
Right. I love that. There's a lot of not only courageousness, but a lot of heart in that. And that's a whole nother conversation about where that all comes from and how we can utilize that. But Uriel, I want to thank you for joining us today. And I want to thank all of our viewers and our listeners for tuning into this episode. There are so many pearls of wisdom that we can glean from Uriel's story, and especially what we just talked about here towards the end about making that decision. And I love what you said when you referenced Steve Harvey's quote, like, when you're going through it, don't stop. Because if you do, then you're going to be stuck in it. Go through it so you can get to the other side. Uriel, where can our listeners and viewers get in touch with you or tap into more Uriel Baker goodness? Are you on social media, websites? Yep. Where can we find you?
I'm on the social media. I'm on Instagram at Uriel Baker. Oh, sorry, it's at Uriel B876, because that's the area code for Jamaica. So it's at Uriel B876 is the one platform that you probably will see these.
Okay. We'll pop that link in the show notes, as well as the link to your website, to your Fit Body locations, if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Fit Body Bootcamp, Westchester and Mason, Ohio.
Excellent. All right. Well, again, Uriel, my friend, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to talk with us. And again, I want to thank all of our viewers and all of our listeners for tuning in, remembering to stay positive, stay persistent, and know that mindset is everything. We'll see you next time. Thank you for tuning in and being part of the Positive Persistence family. We're having a great time creating this content, and we truly hope it inspires you to embrace positivity and persistence in your own journey. If this podcast episode inspired you or entertained you, scroll down, hit those stars, and leave a comment or two. Your 5-star reviews and shares encourage us and help us grow the show. So until next time, stay positive, stay persistent, and remember, mindset is everything.